I learned to sign my name when I was 4 years old, and for one specific purpose. I wanted a library card. I love to read, and that love has only grown as I have. Without the invention of the printing press, commonly associated with Johannes Gutenberg, that love could never have developed. The invention of the printing press was fundamental to the Renaissance, and as James A. Dewar puts it in his 1998 Rand paper, The Information Age of the Printing Press, the printing press had a profound effect on society during the time Europe was making the transition from a medieval to a modern world. That one invention changed society undeniably within 2 centuries, affecting education, technology, and culture. But the printing press was invented twice, first in China and then a millennia later in Europe. In the next few minutes, I'll discuss these 2 inventions, their impact on education, and the 2 styles of movable type. According to the San Francisco Asian Art Museum, the printing press was invented in China during the Tang Dynasty, probably between the 4th and 7th centuries. 1 page at a time would be written, then glued to a block of wood, which would then be carved to produce a woodcut. It took many of these to produce a single book, but once they were created, thousands of identical books could be printed efficiently and inexpensively. By the end of the 9th century, this technology had spread across all of China. By contrast, the Gutenberg press was more advanced at its start, which was sometime in the 1430s. It used movable type nearly from its invention, and as the Oregon State University Libraries report, individual letters would be... I've lost my spot. Where am I? Hundreds of individual letters would be arranged to form a single page. As you can see in the picture, these letters would be arranged backwards and upside down. Thousands of these to create a page, which would need thousands to create a book. But compared to handwriting, this was the speed of light. The main advantage of movable type was that it could be reorganized, and the individual metal letters could even be melted down to form new ones. Movable type was invented in China during the 11th century. It would use porcelain or clay blocks with individual symbols on them representing individual words. While this was a vast improvement, it was still far behind Europe. Gutenberg's main contribution to the printing press as a metalsmith was the use of metal stamps, which would be arranged in composing sticks. Early versions sometimes combined letters or intentionally varied the shape of individual letters in order to better imitate manuscript writing. Now that we've talked about the invention of the printing press, let's talk about its impact on society. Before the Gutenberg printing press, books were very expensive and only the very well-off could afford them. As you can see, 1 book cost the same as 53 sheep. Most people had no hope of affording one, let alone enough to educate themselves. The education was controlled by the wealthy, and those who could afford multiple books or even a library were often the same people actively preventing the lower classes from educating themselves. But after the invention of the printing press, books became much more accessible to the lower classes, as you can see. With the decrease in price and the increase in availability, more people could be educated. And over the last 600 years, learning has accelerated higher and higher. But the most important advance was during the Reformation, when, for the first time, education was available to the poor in Germany. However, education in China was stagnant for over 3,000 years. as David B. Surowski reports. David B. Surowski is a professor of mathematics at Kansas State University, and he states that before the 15th century BC, until Western education was introduced by missionaries in the mid-1800s, education in China was largely unchanged. This may be due to the fact that despite their wide geographical use of the printing press, the usage was still limited to upper-class citizens. We've seen that the printing press made education possible and available to the general populace of Western Europe. All of those newly educated people needed something to read, and a new industry was created. Within 500 years of the European printing press's invention, information was everywhere in the West. Newspapers and magazines permeated every sizable city. Most countries had colleges and universities. Even common citizens could hear of major events halfway around the world in a matter of months, which then in time became weeks and then days, and is now hours and minutes. Anyone with enough ambition and dedication could educate themselves, even learning foreign languages. For social and political reasons, China has been slow to educate as broadly as the West, though they are making strides. Despite being invented twice, some would say invented once, developed twice, the printing press's impact was not equal. The Roman alphabet's 26 characters lent themselves to the technology in a way that Chinese characters never could. But one thing is clear. For the West, without the invention of the printing press, technology, if not society, might still be in the Middle Ages. Thank you for your time. The end.